Okay, but here's the crux. The most mature online travel market in Europe, the UK market, is likely to reach an inflection point between offline and online in 2012. What I mean by that is, in 2012, online travel is likely to overtake offline in terms of transaction value. So more travel will be booked online than offline in the UK. Compare that to the Italian online travel market, and whilst the trend is the same, online travel is growing, offline travel is falling, it's a much shallower graph. And I don't think that's going to change. So, based on this, at current growth rates, Italy's online travel market will reach the same point, i.e. that inflection point, in about 2024. If it gets there at all, there's nothing to suggest it will. It might be that the online travel market simply carries on growing to a certain point and then plateaus. I suspect it will, but it's a slow process. So there are opportunities, as I mentioned before, and I'd like to look at them now and sort of give you my views on where I think those opportunities are and potentially what could speed up this shift online. Because I think, everyone in this room agrees that the shift online is important and will ultimately be better for tourism businesses and your businesses. So what could speed this shift? Okay. I don't want to dwell on these slides because they're a bit data heavy, but this is just an illustration. This is the UK online travel market again. And this shows the breakdown of sectors in both the online travel market and the travel market as a whole. And as you can see, a bit like the European graph, airline is heavily dominant in the UK market. That's partly because of the dominance of the low-cost airlines and UK travellers' love of air travel, probably because we've got such awful train travel. But proportionately, although of the total UK market, the airline proportion is smaller than the online travel market, it's still the biggest portion. So the airline market online is the biggest, the airline market offline is the biggest. Or in the total is the biggest. However, if you look at the Italian market, again, online travel market, airline dominates. But in the offline market, hotels dominate. And what that says to me is Italy has a huge demand for hotels. Italian travelers buy a lot of hotel rooms. However, they don't buy them online. And I think this suggests that, one, the penetration of the Italian hotel market, the online penetration of the Italian hotel market, is very small, and there is a lot of opportunity for growth in this sector. So I think mainly opportunities for OTAs and accommodation consolidators. I was talking to a lady just before this presentation, and she was mentioning the fact that a lot of the companies that are selling travel online in Italy are actually not Italian companies. So of the people that are buying online travel, they're buying online travel from international online travel companies or international airlines like EasyJet or Ryanair or whatever, and they're not buying from Italian companies. So I think there's an opportunity for a well-funded and well-thought-out Italian OTA to consolidate this marketplace further and to actually get a lot more Italian properties online and get that message out to Italian travelers that they can book these properties online. Because at the moment, the penetration really is tiny. So there's definitely opportunity for growth there. And also, the international OTAs are sniffing around quite heavily. The biggest one, Expedia, bought Venere.com. Clear indication, I think, of the potential of this market. I was at World Travel Market last week and listening to Ian McCaig, the CEO of LastMinute.com. he said that, and this isn't just for Italy, this is the whole of the European market. There is opportunity for the hotel segment across all regions, but hotels are the most underpenetrated online segment in Europe. It's the fastest growing and the yields are pretty good. But more specifically, the Italian, Spanish and German source markets still have 30-40% growth potential. And as I mentioned before, the UK, Nordics and France, they're a bit more mature. So I do think there's opportunity here. If you're looking at, for leverage in this market, then I think this is a good place to be. I'm not going to focus too much on these slides. Skip those. Okay, so conclusions about the Italian online travel market specifically. Very key point, Italian online travelers spend more per head than any other market. So any growth in the number of people booking online could be lucrative. The Italian online accommodation market appears to be very underdeveloped. It's not a market that I know a huge amount about in detail. So I'm looking at top-line figures here and making assumptions. So if any of you think I'm wrong, then please pull me up on this. But that's my perception. And as a result, there's a lot of perception for growth. However, the next part of my presentation we'll be looking at something that I think could shake up the market much more than anything I've alluded to so far. So we also did some research, or several pieces of research this year into M-travel and the potential for mobile travel commerce and mobile travel marketing globally. And in this research, Italy did feature quite heavily, and I'll go on to explain why. Okay, so just a few stats. This isn't travel web browsing, this is general web browsing, but in 2008, Italian mobile web browsing increased by nearly 57%. So people accessing the web through their mobile phone is growing very rapidly in Italy. And interestingly, this trend is mirrored for mobile travel browsing. So again, we're looking at 54% growth in people accessing accessing travel information, travel websites via their mobile devices in the last year, or between February 2008, February 2009. You can see on this graph, Italy's the green line, and it started off at a slightly lower base than the UK, but finished significantly higher. So I think there's a lot of potential there. There's also growth in application use, although it's not quite as significant. A 20% growth in application use, and that's travel-specific application use in Italy in the same period. Browsing is generally across all markets growing more rapidly than application use. And I think that's quite an interesting point in itself. It suggests that people are still looking for similar information to the information that they would do on their laptops or on their PCs, but they're using a different interface to access that information. So they're not necessarily looking for fancy gadgets and fancy applications. They're still looking for the same information, but they're looking for it on the go. And now that smartphone penetration is so much higher, particularly in this market, they are able to access that information more quickly, more effectively, and I think that's only going to grow moving forward. Okay, so we did a little bit of research into the mobile audience. Who are they? If mobile travel is growing, who are you targeting? Where do you need to invest to make sure that you're reaching the right people in this new marketplace? So for travel services, accessed via browsing, over 50% aged between 25 and 44. It's kind of what